You on, Jelly? Okay.
Made it.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, good
You can
timing.
hear me good? Okay.
Yes, perfect. Mm-hmm.
Perfecto.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. See, I found my little red shirt.
Yeah, I see. Coordinate. Yes, 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 yes. Mhm. Welcome in. I guess we can go ahead and get started.
Yes.
Um, today's topic we're going to be talking about. We normally do like a recap first of all of the
Mm-hmm.
4 steps to healing, but we're going to be talking about expectations. And the first step for our 4 step healing process is the origin. And with the origin, you normally have like your situation or something that you're dealing with. Something, it could be a job loss, anything that has left you with some type of negative impact. It could be a loss of a friendship. It could be financial loss, your job and things like that. Anything that caused you to have like a negative feeling. And the second step is figuring out what emotion you have attached to that situation. Some people have anger, so it causes some people pain, it causes depression, it causes some people to shut down. It'll cause some people to shut down. People keep coming into the live.
What's up, my lady? Good night.
Okay.
Okay.
And it could cause some type of negative impact, like some type of emotions that you may attach to that situation. It could be, like I said, pain, it could be depression, it could be anything that, some people have anger and they don't realize that they suppress it versus talking about it. But you have to figure out like what emotion you have attached to that, because when you lose your jobs, it's painful. You have to worry about what's coming next. You have to worry about doing additional interviews, and sometimes that could cause some type of anxiety, and we don't realize how much emotions that we attach to those situations. Then we have the accountability. Like, say, for instance, you had a situation with a friend and you're no longer speaking. You have to
Mm-hmm.
decide, was that something you attracted? Was that something already within? Or is that
Mm-hmm.
something that, that's coming at you? You don't know why. And sometimes it could be emotions that we're holding in from the past. And we attract those type of situations. We're not aware of it because we think that, oh, I'm healed. I no longer talk to that person. They're no longer in my life. We think that, oh, that's healing, but we have to go back and visit, like, were we vulnerable at that moment? Like, what was going on that we even took on that friendship? Sometimes we'll see the
Mm-hmm.
red flags, but then we'll continue, to accept that person and let that person in, because, we want to have you want to be nice, you want to be kind. And sometimes that's not, ideal at that particular time. And then our the fourth step is to let go once you've done all the work. And how you know that that no longer affects you in that way is how you respond to the triggers that you'll receive. So those are
Mm-hmm.
like 4 steps that we have come up with, and to kind of help with healing, like setting up like a healing process. Anything you want to say, Jelly? Piggyback off of that.
Um, yeah, you pretty much nailed it. Yeah, I think that's good for the recap.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because you already used examples, of certain things. So I think that was good. And then
Okay.
I would add on for that letting go part. A big tester is, when you come across that trigger or whatever that original situation was, that'll kind of test and see, the progress that you made, or if you're really getting over the hump, or if you eventually fully healed. So that letting go phase of definitely test you to see if you're at that point of being completely healed. So another thing too is
Exactly.
just be patient with yourself. Give yourself credit for every little step of the way. And, just don't get too caught up on thinking that this happens overnight. It takes time.
Yeah.
Nobody can really tell you how long it's going to take you to get over and get fully healed over certain situations. So accountability is the biggest one. I always hit on that one, because it's easy to identify whatever the origin or the situation is. It's easy to feel the emotions that's attached. But when you get to that accountability phase, hey, Makai.
Yeah,
When you get to
okay.
that accountability phase, you
We
can
get stuck.
you get stuck because it becomes hard, and you got to start asking those hard questions, and you got to start, having those hard conversations, like, why did this happen, or what attracted this, or what caused this, so be patient with yourself in the accountability phase. And then, like I said, letting go is when you fully know that those triggers don't offend you anymore, and you free to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And on that accountability, sometimes, we get stuck there because the ego
Mm-hmm.
will tell us, oh, well, that's my friend, or I was in that relationship, I don't need that person, or that person, no longer serves that purpose. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, some people want closure, but you're not going to always be able to get that closure. So you have to create within yourself a safe space that you can go to when, situations like this happen. Because when
Mm-hmm.
we create safe space in others, when that person is no longer available or there for you, then you tend to, not know how to deal with the situation, or it could cause some type of, an additional negative response. And like we said, because, healing, it comes in layers. It's not going to always, come overnight. And like, Jillian would say, give yourself, some grace.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we think because, the person is no longer around that we have healed. But that's one way of suppressing, because we do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
suppressing. And a lot of people, tend to hold on to emotions, and those are the same emotions that they attack with, because they are not even in a present state of mind when other situations arise. So they use those same emotions, and they're not aware of it, and they'll attack, other people with those emotions. And even in situations where you have to be present, some people can't be present because they have too much, anxiety or pain that they're dealing with that they haven't released, that, some people can't even pour into them. And you
Mm-hmm.
get in relationships and you thinking, but I've done my best, I'm doing all that I can. Why this person is not responding to me? And it's because they have really no place to even put the love or the kindness, because they haven't fully healed yet. And that's what happens
Mm-hmm.
normally when we get into relationships without healing. And everybody think that, it's okay to immediately move on, but you have to ask yourself, why did I attract this person? Like, what's in me that's attracting them? And sometimes relationships end because one person may heal, and
Mm-hmm.
they no longer have anything that's attached together. And then all of a sudden you're asking, well, what happened? But things happen overnight because, people, they heal from that emotion that brought you two together. And,
And then you no
another,
longer attracted to each other anymore, because that emotion that
right,
y'all shared that drew y'all together is no longer there. So that's how you'd be
right,
like, well, dang, well, he overnight he just stopped liking me. No, that emotion that tied y'all
right.
together is just not shared anymore.
Right. And a lot of times we carry things and, we don't realize that we're carrying them. and it tends to show up in the people around us. Because sometimes if we stop and we take a look at the people that's in our lives, and you try to identify, like, what do I, you ask these questions: how do I identify with this person? What do we share? What do we have? Some
Mm-hmm.
people have childhood past that they can relate to. But if you're looking at someone and things are pretty negative and you can't relate, then it's time to ask yourself, well, maybe I need to dig deeper, or I need to go back and ask myself,
Mm-hmm.
like, what type of emotion that I'm really holding on, that I haven't dealt with or gotten rid of.
Right. And then that ties into you saying, just like you said, when people walk out the house and the reflection, whatever is in them, it shows up in the people closest to you, and a reflection of the interactions that you have with certain people. It's gonna show. It's gonna show. So
Right.
that's just something to kind of be aware of. And then, when things happen, instead of, reacting with certain emotion, it's like,
But
use that as self-reflection, because it's like,
there
well,
you go.
why did I deserve that, or what did I do for this to happen, so you can kind of use it as a self-reflecting moment, to kind of figure out where you at too.
Right. Because we see it happen all the time. Sometimes you go in the grocery store and you and your friend, and they get their change back. The person hands it to them, in their hand, but then when you walk up, they throw it on the counter. It's like, well, you know what, I was having a good day, and why did this happen to me? Why did they do that? And the friend was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that didn't happen with me. They gave it to me in my hand. But then you and that person may have some type of emotion. And one thing about
Share.
emotions, they will connect. It's almost like they recognize each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we created these 4 steps, because healing is so important. Because when you don't heal the emotion that you haven't healed from, so you leave yourself wide open, because everybody becomes connected to you that shares that same emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, leaving your back door open at night when you're going to sleep, because at any given time, even at your best moment, somebody can come in and ruin it. And a lot of people are not going through this. Everybody think that, oh, that's life, that's how it goes. But no. And what we try to do is to fix the bridge in between the two, because you hear people say, oh, you have to heal, you have to heal. Then you have the healers over here. I'm healed, this is what it looks like. But nobody is talking about the middle. Nobody is talking about how you break that part down. Nobody is talking about how you talk about it and identify with these emotions. But the hardest thing is for us to do is to admit that we have some type of pain and trauma, because we think that's a sign of weakness. But
Mm-hmm.
carrying all of that weight, that's weight, emotional weight. And when you get rid of it, then you become lighter. You feel different. You begin to attract different things become easy. You have a different thought process. You're not
Yes.
on what they say on 10. You don't feel like, oh, I always have to protect myself, I have to do this. And of course we know, going to work, on jobs, we carry these emotions and we think, oh, I'll just change job, I'll just move out of state. But if you haven't done the inner work on the inside, all you're doing
It's
is
gonna
taking it
follow
with
you.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anybody want to come up and say anything or share anything that they're going through, that we could probably go through the 4 steps with y'all?
Or any comments?
Any comments or any questions so far about the process? Okay. Just thinking, is there anything that we need to touch on before we go into expectations? But if you're ready, we can. We'll go back into
Okay.
if you want to. All
Yeah.
right. So our topic for today is expectations. When we think about expectations, we think what is expected of us, or what we are expected to do. And when we talk about name some things that, you're expected to do, or situations, we think about mothers, we think about fathers. When we think about mothers, mothers normally is the nurturer. They normally, the cooking, the cleaning, taking care of the kids. And we are expected to do this. In society, it's almost like they put us in this little cookie cutter,
Mm-hmm.
like mothers does this, mothers does that. And then when we look at the dad is normally like the one that has the authority,
A
the
tough guy.
discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Supposed to be the tough guy, no emotions, just,
Provider. Mm-hmm.
protector, and all of these things. We expect these things, but we have to break that cycle, and you have to do what's best for your family, like whatever your family dynamics, what works best for you. And we often see like the male's supposed to do this, or the female's supposed to do this. But if we work, if you work together as a team, that makes the relationship, that makes everything easier, on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And because and you think about like a situation that I was able to witness when I was at a restaurant, and it was a family, and they had like a couple of small kids. And when the drinks came, the kid accidentally spilled their drink. And with children, sometimes they don't know how to express
Breast,
those
yeah.
emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So the child was like, smiling and laughing. And the dad was like, oh, well, you think that's funny? You think that's funny? So then the child became upset. And of course, the child, was crying. In that situation, it's almost like we expect kids to be able to express themselves. Well, sometimes they don't. They may laugh. They may
Mm-hmm.
cry, but that's their way of expressing themselves. But
Right.
then at this point, the kid is thinking, "Oh, anytime I knock my drink over, do something negative, I'm gonna get in trouble." But those are what you call accidents.
Mm-hmm.
Accidents happen with kids. And we, try to bring the lighter side to, what's expected, how we're supposed to discipline. And sometimes it doesn't call for a lot of things like in the past, like how
Mm-hmm.
we used to, they think a child should be seen and not heard. Well, today, these kids have a lot of things to say.
And loudly.
Right. And the things that they say are very, could be very important. But, like they say, out of the mouths of babes. And, a lot of things, we just not going to be doing like we did in the past. We expect to be quiet and go with the flow. But,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things we just, times are changing. And,
You're right.
the kids, they know how to express themselves. And sometimes it's meant for the adults to, to sit and just listen, to hear them and see what they have to say.
Right.
Yeah. Anything about friendships, Chili, when it comes to expectation with friendships, or anything you want to say, or you agree?
I just want. I'm gonna actually piggyback off of what you were saying about like parents,
Okay.
right? And like you said, you have to do what works for your household. I mean, I have with my friends, we have this conversation all the time, like, just thinking the dynamic of what, people think it should be, as far as the family dynamic, like, oh, the man's supposed to work and pay all the bills and this, and that. And I'm just like, that's not it, boo. Like that's just not it. That's not how it's going. Like you gotta think, like today the society is so controlling. Then you gotta think about the
That's it.
economy. Like why would you want that? If
Stress
if
on
it's
one person.
afforded, then yeah, but at the same time, like you said,
Yeah.
yeah, why would you want that stress on one person? Like, I mean, what happens when something happens to the dad, or the dad goes down, or the job, you may lose a job. Anything
Yeah.
can happen, and it's like, why would you want to put yourself or a family in that situation? It's just something to think about. It's not to try to force the
Yeah.
opinion onto others, but that's just things you have to think about today. And it's like
Right.
it's just not it.
Right. It's no
But
cookie cutter.
right, it's no cookie cutter, and I think a lot of people get hung up on how it was in the 70s and the 60s, and the wife stay home and do laundry, just the cookie cutter stuff, and it's like, no, like
Right.
we have control now. It's
Right.
okay to
Right.
break those cycles, or those generational requirements of what is expected. I'll say
What we witness
generational
coming up.
expectations. Yeah, because
Right.
it's a
That's
real thing. Like it is a real thing. And that goes.
right.
It can go into what you eat. Like, oh, we grew up eating this all the time, and it's like, so you expect me to continue eating
Right.
like this, so I can't change my diet because I'm
Right.
more open minded now. Like that's expected.
Right.
So it can
Right.
go on and on and on,
Right.
but it's just, you know, that family dynamic one is a big one because I have that conversation all the time when it comes
Right.
to, mother roles, father roles, wife, husband roles, it's just, it's no right answer to be honest.
Right. You have to do what's best for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes you find that even in friendships, sometimes that person may be dealing with something,
Hmm.
and that person may say, I'm gonna step back, I'm just gonna take time, and then that person's thinking, oh well, she's not talking to me, she's just talking to everybody else. If that person needs that space, give them that space. It doesn't mean that they don't like you. It don't take it in a negative aspect, because that person is trying to be a better version of
Hmm.
themselves. And sometimes when you're on the other side, you have to decide, do I want peace? Because people will make it a loyalty thing. You know,
Hmm.
like if you loyal to me, then you should do this, you should do that. In friendships, we really put a lot of expectations on what friends should
And
do.
friends, yeah.
When it comes to weddings, we think that they're supposed to do this, but what if they can't financially, be able to,
Right.
be in the wedding, but they still want to support you? These are how friendships end, because we think that this is what they're supposed to do, because we have been taught that is the way. But you still have to do what's best for you and what's best for your friendship. If you understand your friend, then that's not the time, although we know weddings, that's your big day, but that's your big day. That's not
Hmm.
your friend's big day. We would want them to be there to support you. But a lot of friendships end because, at the last moment, things come up. They have illnesses in the family that, oh, I can no longer attend or be a part of the wedding. And people think, oh, she's trying to ruin my wedding. But the mature thing to do is to think, what if this was me? What if I had this family issue going
Yeah.
on? How would I feel? How would I want somebody to, help me or understand, what I'm going through? And we lose, you lose a lot of friends from
Yeah.
situations like that. You lose them, around funeral time, because they think that, oh,
They're
they have to
special.
come in, right, come in and take over for you and be the mouthpiece for you. And that's not always the case. But that's what people think. We really do put expectations on a lot of things that we deal with. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one for friendships because that can go on and on and on, honestly. And people think, I feel like with friendships, you define what friendship mean to you, not what you're expecting. Like, oh, if you my friend and you gonna show up, if you my friend and you gonna make sure you hear from me or check on me every single day, that's not.
Right.
And that's the understanding you have to have between you and your friend at the same time too, because people
Some
get
things are
caught up on.
unrealistic.
Right, people get caught up on what they think a friendship is, and it's not. It's almost like the family dynamic. Like you have to create that relationship between y'all. What
Right.
works best for y'all? Yeah.
Right, right, yeah, because that could happen. And this is, and we like to touch on subjects that, people may think that it's a hard subject, but when we talk about, our elderly, you know,
Mm,
because they want all the
that's the
respect in the
truth.
world, and which we give them that. But at the same time, like I said, times are changing, because we used to fear the elderly. We
Yeah.
used to think that, oh, they're mean, they're mean, and they wasn't getting the respect, they was getting fear, from
Hmm.
us. And that's a big difference, because you want to feel that, you could go to them and talk to them
Yeah.
about things. But they were always so strong and, and disciplined. But those are signs too that, when people don't heal, they put up these walls and they want to, portray that they're strong, and anything else is a sign of weakness. And, you have to deal with, the elderly like that, because they want this respect. But then at the same time, everybody deserves respect, because
Yeah.
even when disciplining, a child back then, that could have done some type of trauma or damage, that could have caused that child to shut down or not want to be verbal about things when, they needed to talk about things. They probably just didn't feel comfortable, or they didn't feel safe, because, they were demanding. We love them now, but
Yeah.
they expect that, okay, it's my turn. You have to do these
Yeah.
things, for
That
me.
is
You
a
have to
true
be there for
thing.
me.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
very true. And then too, you think, you growing up too, like you said, when you were like kids, it was almost like a fear thing. But as you get older, it's like when you get grown, it's almost like,
You understand.
yeah, you can see, and it's like, you could kind of dissect it and just understand a little bit better. But
Like I have something to say,
yeah. And then you can almost be a little bit more vocal, if that makes sense. Because,
Right.
back then it's you expected to be quiet and do
Quite.
whatever is
Yeah.
said. But now
Right,
it's like,
right,
oh, well, why I need to do it like this? Or, you can kind of have that dialogue between you and whoever, without
right,
it being
right.
like a no, be quiet, like do what I say.
A
So
disrespectful type situation.
yeah.
Right. And a lot of myths that we, also think, we expect that when somebody has healed, that you can run over them. Like
Mm,
they still can't tell you, where to go. It's called no, because I feel like if I've put in all of the work, if I've done the work, then I'm not going to let somebody come and make me go backwards. And
right.
it's almost like you have to protect your palace. You have to protect your kingdom, your house. Because if you was in a parking lot somewhere and somebody was trying to, break into your car, you saw somebody trying to break into your house, you're going to be a little, aggressive. Like, no, I'm not. And that's the same way you have to be about your peace. You have to protect your peace,
Hmm.
once you heal. And people don't, they expect you to just be nice and kind. When you tell them, yeah, I went through this healing process and I'm healed, then they think, oh, everything is supposed to be a yes. But that's the time you put up your boundaries. And if
Right.
you want to say no, it's okay to say no, because we've been, taught that when you say no, we think that's negative.
Hmm.
We think,
That's
oh
true.
no,
Or you
is,
feel
it's
guilty
bad.
or bad. Yeah.
You feel guilty, but when you go through that healing process, you have to be very protective of, how far you've come. And yeah,
Right.
you don't want nobody to just come in one situation and cause you to backtrack.
Right.
Yeah. But then,
What else we got?
there was a situation, that I dealt with. Jillian, we talked about this when,
Hmm.
there was a situation where I had to have back surgery. And it was supposed to be, day surgery, like a
Hmm.
24-hour thing. Well, I ended up staying in the hospital for about almost 30 days, almost a month. And it was
Hmm.
unexpected. And I could remember one day, my son calling me, and he was like, "What's wrong with you? You look like you're upset." And I was like, "Yeah, I would have thought that certain people would have come, to see me," which I did. I had people checking on me, texting me and
Yeah.
calling. But as far as physically,
Right.
visiting,
Hmm.
it wasn't, that many people. And so I was thinking, okay, like my sister, my daughter-in-law, my sons, but of course my children, of course,
Yeah.
they came or they tapped in. But then, after he was like, well, he gave me an explanation. I was like, okay, I could take that. I'll deal with that. But then once we hung up, I sat there and I
Hmm.
thought about it. But then I could hear, but that's not who you are anyway.
Right.
You don't go visiting people.
Right.
People don't come visiting you to your house. And I love the self checks. Oh, I
Yeah.
love the self checks because I want to be so aligned, or I want to be in the right place. Not perfect, but I want to be in that place where I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand. I want to know, you know? And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, that's not even who you are. So why are you fretting about it? You know?
Right.
Yes, you're in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital, but you expect, we expect people, to do certain things for us. And it was like, but that's not who you are. And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That not only freed me, how I was thinking, but it's like, and you're not always, expected to do certain things because we think also that
Mm-hmm.
we're expected to do certain things. And I was like, well, that freed me. And it's not like it was a tit for tat, but it brought me some peace where I was like, oh, okay. So we could kind of just break this cycle or this chain about what we're supposed to do or what we expected to do.
Right.
And that was on me, but it freed me up. And now, I have a different thought process where if I want to do it, then that's what I want
Mm-hmm.
to do. If I don't want to do it, then I know that I don't have to do it. And it
Right.
wasn't like, and it has nothing to do with the other person, me saying no. It has
Mm-mm.
nothing to do with them. Like
Your
I said,
peace.
it's about my peace, because
Yes.
how many times have we done things and it's like, I don't feel like doing this. The holidays come around. I don't feel like cooking all of this food. If it was just tomorrow, if it was just next week, but we're expected to do these things on the holidays, with the
Yeah.
holidays, all of
Mm.
these things, anniversaries, birthdays, we're expected to do all of these things because we have been in these cycles for so long. But,
Yes.
yeah.
No, that's true. You on the roll right there. That is so
Well,
true. You know, just growing up. I mean, just growing up, that happened to me, especially with holidays coming home, you know, it's expected. Yes, you're gonna spend time with your family. You're gonna do, cook or,
yeah.
you know, help, do whatever you do. It can be overwhelming, but if you don't balance that piece with
Right.
it,
Put your boundaries. It's okay to put boundaries.
yeah.
What happened for Mother's Day? Mother's Day.
When this year?
Yeah, when you said, "Oh, I'm coming home,"
When
you were
when I
saying
say
you
I'm
was
coming.
gonna come home. You were gonna come home for Mother's
Oh,
Day, and what
oh,
did
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah. Because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to come home for Mother's Day, and you was like, mm-mm. You was
You
like,
just got off the road. You just did
yeah.
school for 30 days in Rhode Island. I was like,
Yeah,
no,
I was
no,
like,
no,
yeah,
no.
I want to come over Mother's Day. You was like, no, you already know I am not. You gotta get rest. You told me you was like, you have to get rest. This is just one day. Don't get caught up on expectations,
Right,
right?
right.
And you was like, no. And then even the weather was kind of wonky, so you was
The
like,
rain.
she was
Yeah.
like, no, you gonna stay home and rest. You gonna stay home and rest. Like, and that's one thing about you. You always understand, and you kind of
Yeah.
help me with that, because I'm
Right.
bad with it. Because I love doing stuff, and sometimes you will sacrifice your peace for certain
Yeah.
things that you want to
Yeah.
do. But that's a choice that, you have to be willing to make. But at the same time, I didn't
Right.
have that balance, right? So when you always, loop me in and tell me like, hey, no, like you might need to pump your brakes right now, like, take a
Yeah.
break, get some rest, like, and that helps
Right.
me out a lot because it's like I feel like I'm expected to do it, that's coming
Right.
from me. But when once you hop in and you like, no, you shut it right down, and it's like, okay, it's almost like
All right.
you free me, but that
Right.
helped
Right.
me use that in all different situations. It's not just that. It's not just when it comes to you, I can
Right.
use that and apply it to whatever else come my way.
Right. And it's not, sometimes you have to think, and it's not you being selfish, but it's me not being selfish,
Right.
thinking,
Mm-hmm.
you have to sometimes think about that other person, like, how they feel and what they're going through, and just not think, oh, but Another thing that I thought about, expectations, society. When you suffer a loss, they still expect you to show up. They're going to give you a couple of days, and we'll see you in a couple of days. But if you don't say, well, I need more time. Like I'm not back to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But society just kicks you right on along.
Yeah.
Grieving process. Well, I'm sorry. You have to do this. You have
You
to
gotta
come to
get it
work.
back together. Yeah.
Right. Don't be afraid to set those boundaries. Don't be afraid
Mm-hmm.
that if you need, extra time, go to urgent care. Get
Right.
them to write you an excuse if you feel you need more time. Go to a doctor. They understand. If you have that good, primary care physician or, somebody who will understand, let them know. Don't be afraid to tell people how you really feel. And that's
Right.
how we sometimes miss the mark, is because we want to be, looked at as we're the strong person. But that's not
Mm-hmm.
being strong,
It's
and
not.
right, be able to express how you feel. And I think that's the issue, because we can talk about situations all day long. This happened to
Mm-hmm.
me, this person did this to me, but I want to know, how did that make you feel? Like, how did that make you feel? Let's address how you're feeling, so we can kind of nip this in the bud, so you're
Mm-hmm.
not out there attracting the same people that share the same emotion. And, everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, it's more people coming at you, and you wondering, well, what's going on? And some people don't understand that's what's going on. You have
Yeah.
that on the inside, but yeah, those things, yeah, we're expected to do.
Especially with the job thing, right? Um, because you will have some jobs that don't understand. Like they feel like you just have to show up, and it's like no, because I tell people this all the time, and I know I'm a part of a organization that
Yeah.
requires you to be in certain places at the same at certain times, but no, because guess what?
Right.
If I'm not able to come to work, as far as I don't care if it's mental or sick or need a day, y'all gonna figure it
Right.
out.
Right.
And I
Right.
think
And they normally
a
do.
lot of people get caught up with the job, and it happens because
Yeah.
that's your livelihood, and I get it, but it's
Yeah.
still creating those. You still have to set those boundaries when they come to work, because you will
Right.
have some companies that really care about you and give you the time and whatever you
Right.
need, and support, but it's some places that will drag you through the mud, and it's on you to
They
set
don't
those
care.
boundaries. Yeah,
Right.
it's on
Yeah.
you to set those boundaries, like, hey, no, I can't do it, not this time,
Right.
and it hurts
Right.
and
I
it
can't
sucks because
stay.
right,
I can't
and you
come
become
in.
that reliable person, and it gets draining, and that's when
Yeah.
you have to protect your peace and set those
Right.
boundaries, like, hey, I worked for you last weekend, I can't do it this weekend, like it
Right.
just,
Right.
I've been there, and
Right. Oh, I know
it
about
becomes
that.
a lot,
Yeah.
and it starts to take a toll on you. Yeah.
Right. Take those PTO days, take those vacations. I was the one, I never took vacations. I
Oh
never
yeah.
used my PTO. I mean, I had thousands of hours, in PTO. But once I started getting, hip to, how the process goes, I'm like, oh yeah, I need this time. Even if it's just to be home. Sometimes you don't have to be going anywhere.
Yeah.
You just you just want that freedom, you just want that peace. So, yeah, those are situations, those are things that, we're expected to do. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just realized that too. Like every time, I would take my time off, I would be doing something, right? And I'm like, that's really not time off for me. And until
Right.
you
It's
said, you helped me navigate through, because I'm like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just stay home, and I just stay home. It's like,
right.
who said you got to do stuff to take? You got to take off just to do stuff.
Right.
You could
Right.
take 2 or 3 days off and just chill at the house. I mean,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Because holidays, like holidays, those are big, holidays
yeah,
are, and those are the times that people definitely, especially around Christmas, deal with
yeah,
depression,
yeah,
because they may not have the finances to help. They want to
Right.
get gifts, they want to do things, but in society, it makes it seem like, oh, this is the season of giving. This is the season. Your time is just as valuable.
It's right.
It's not always financial, but sometimes our pride and our ego won't
Mm-hmm.
allow that to be. We thinking, oh, I have to go spend all this money, I have to go do all of this. And if you can, it's good, it's appreciated, and it's nothing, no shade, but we're talking about, people that feel like they're forced to do it or they have to do it because, this is the holiday. What if that holiday wasn't, that specific, that particular day? What would you be doing, around that time?
Right.
What would you be doing that particular day? But because we have a calendar and we look at it, we go by the cookie cutter. We tend to
Mm-hmm.
feel like, we have to do everything. But it's when you start breaking that cycle, is when you start creating that freedom. Don't be afraid to let your family dynamics be different from somebody else's. Because who are
Mm-hmm.
you when everybody is doing the same thing, the same loop every year? We doing the same thing. Who's gonna break the circle? Who's gonna step out and say, no, this is what we're gonna do this time? It's okay to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't go anywhere, it's okay to do that too. But we get
Right.
caught up in things where we expected, to do these things, and expectations. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. It
It's
goes
a
deep.
lot. Yeah,
It
it's a
goes
lot.
deep.
Yep.
Um, and it came to me only because I just know how I am. Like the hairstylist, right? I
Yeah.
remember, and it's kind of tying into being understanding. Like, put yourself on the other side when
Right.
maybe you're not the one expected to do something, but sometimes we expect people to do certain things too. Like
Right.
hairstylists, I expect you to do my hair because if I'm paying
Right.
you, I'm
Right.
expecting you to show up on time.
Right.
When you say whatever day, and I'm expecting you to do my hair. So
Right.
one of the hairstylists, she had a toothache, right? And she texted me the same day of
Oh.
my appointment, and I'm like, she was like, "Yeah, I just left the dentist. I'm gonna try to make it." And I was like, you know what? I understand. I said, listen, toothaches are no joke.
Yeah.
I said, we can reschedule it. I understand. Take care of yourself. Go do your thing. You good. Like, and sometimes you have to be understanding with certain situations. And that's just me. I'm very understanding. Sometimes I feel like I'm too
Right.
understanding when it comes to certain things. But
Okay.
sometimes you have to put yourself on the other side and be like, okay, I
Yeah.
understand. Or try to
Yeah.
look at it in a different view. It may not be your normal reaction, to certain situations, but I try to dissect every little thing now. And it becomes fun
It's g-
because it's like,
it do-
wait, let me
it's
think about it.
growth.
Like, yes. I'm like, wait, let me
Right.
think about it like this. I'm like, no. What about this though? So it becomes fun when you start looking at, situations from a different eye, in a
Right.
different view from all sides, because it become fun, and then you start understanding more and more and more. And it's like, wow, I should have been thinking like
Right.
this.
Right. And that's good. And yeah, because that's how it is. And it makes you feel good, and that, chaos wasn't created, because it's not always even about the chaos. Some people
Mm-mm.
love chaos. Some people love it, but when you are a naturally kind person, giving
Hmm.
person, you do have to put those boundaries up, because people are expecting you to always say yes, because I used to be
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah.
Yes to this, yes to that. Then I'll go home, but I didn't want to do this. I wish I could have done this or said this. You think of all the things you could have said instead.
Hmm.
But even those type situations, yeah, people expect you to say yes, yeah, and because you
Yeah.
kind, they expect you to stand your ground either. you
That's
know
true.
they think, well, I know I could ask her, she'll do it, but
Do it.
no, don't be afraid, right?
Hmm. Especially when they come to jobs. Because they'll be like, oh, she nice,
Right.
she sweet, she always smiling. No,
They
don't ask
expect you,
me.
yeah. Yeah.
But I'm
and if
getting
you want to
better with
do it,
boundaries too. Yeah. I can honestly say I'm getting
Right.
better with boundaries because, certain times of the year, like you say, you expected to do certain things. Not doing it.
Right. And it's just not good, at that time. And it doesn't mean I love you less, or
Yeah.
it doesn't mean all of that. It's I'm growing, and I want to be the best version of myself, so I could be the
Mm-hmm.
best version to you, or
Right.
anybody else, or family. And if it's a constant thing where, somebody is calling and, always, bad news and always telling you something negative, sometimes you have to let that go. Then you have to ask
Yeah.
yourself, do I allow this? Like, am I allowing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I, letting this come into my space? Because where am I putting this? Do I even have room for it? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to evaluate things like that, because people don't see it as, they look at you as a strong person. They don't
Yeah.
think that, oh, well, they may be drained, or they may be tired sometimes, or, that's not a good time for them. Oh, no, they strong. I've seen how they move. They expect you to continue to be strong. And sometimes, you have to put your foot down, and it's okay to say, well, no, I don't think this is a good choice for me at the moment. Yeah.
Right. And what about do you have thoughts on expectate like people expect, I guess I'm trying to flip this, your time. What's the expectations on your time? Because people sometimes will feel like, you have time, or you don't, it's just like, why do people assume because you're, you know, just home or just not doing anything? It's just like, oh well, time.
They could do it, or
Okay.
and because I'm constantly going through the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Those boundaries are important. Like I say, I'm on, protect mode. I'm not in, no type of I don't have my walls up or anything. But I feel with boundaries, I can decide what comes in, and I can decide
Right.
what goes out. But so that means I'm still present. I'm just, I'm not in the past. I'm present, and I'm protecting myself so no new issues, or issues come up. I'm able
Okay.
to talk about those situations at the beginning, and I don't mind now. and
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me feel, it makes me feel like, oh, this is how it should be feeling, because just because I'm home, people figure, oh, but she's not doing that and she can do it. I dare you. I dare you to even think that, ask me, text me, and if it's something I want to do, I'll let you know. But don't just automatically like, oh, well, she could do it. She's
Assume.
not doing nothing right. And no. But the old me would have been like, okay, well, yeah, I could do it. And I could be in the middle of doing a whole bunch of things. I have a lot going on. I'll stop what I'm doing. In emergencies, of course, I'm still
Right.
that person, but
Yeah.
I'm just a person with boundaries.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, and it's funny because when you don't have boundaries, everything is pretty much in black and white. You see, and I always, before I put boundaries up, I always saw the good in people. It was just one way. I saw the good, I
Mm-hmm.
saw the kind, because
That's
that
me.
I didn't realize, but if it's in you, that's what you're going to see, in
Yeah.
other people. So it was
Mm-hmm.
always the good. So of course I wanted to, uphold the image, not thinking, not purposely upholding the image, but it's who I am. Yeah, I'm nice, I'm kind. But then when I started feeling like I was being used,
Yeah.
favors weren't
Taking
being
advantage of.
returned. Right. And always expected to say yes. They the first person that,
You
they come to
call.
you.
Mm-hmm.
They wasn't asking anybody else. And then when I started putting the boundaries up, then I began to see things in color. I began to
Mm.
see, I began to see the good in them, but then I also saw the side where, oh, I'm being taken advantage. I could see these other things too once I put my boundaries up. But I wasn't
Right.
afraid. Like I say, I'm not afraid to say no now, because
Yeah.
it's not towards that person, because we think when we say no, it's towards the person, but it's like, no, I can't do that right now. No, this is not the best decision or the best choice for me right now. That's all
Right.
they saying.
Yeah.
So don't take it personal. When somebody
Right.
tells you no, be that person that has done that work, that no is not, like people, you see the videos and they say, well, he said he wanted a divorce and he don't love me. And it's like, no, all I said was we can't go, eat this food right now because we have food in the refrigerator,
Right.
so don't insert your own words or your own thoughts or your own pains and your own traumas,
Right. Don't
because
project.
right, don't project what you're going through. Actually listen to what that person is saying. But you have a lot of people when they have, a lot of trauma, they can't hear anything.
Yeah.
They don't understand what you saying. All they see is my pain, my trauma, and that's where I'm responding from,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense though. Yeah. Where
Because
we
I
at?
always say
Oh.
we respond. We
Mm-hmm.
respond according to our pains and our triggers, and
That's true.
when you've watched, family dynamics, my single mom, I don't know anything about a dad being in the house,
Right.
but I
Right.
knew about a strong black female being in the house. I knew
Right.
that, failure was never an option,
Mm-hmm.
so, and when I had to step up or anytime I needed to step up, I was able to do that. But then that doesn't mean, I have to be aggressive in my relationships, but you do
Right.
have to learn that it's okay to not be the number one breadwinner. It's okay to not, be the top person because that's your time to rest. Take that time, take that time to rest. If that's the
Mm-hmm.
reality, there's no need of trying to, fight for, the head of the household or try to fight for no, it's you don't have to do that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that ties back into those roles too.
The roles that we talked about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the beginning. The
Titles.
expectations, yeah, of those roles. So
Right.
yeah.
Because at any
Mm-hmm.
given moment, like you said, they could reverse,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's all about balance. It's all about
Right.
balance. So
It's all about
a
balance.
lot of times too, you'll see people be like, oh, well, what you think of 70-30 or 60-40? It don't that it shouldn't have a role on there. It shouldn't say, oh, mother
Right.
on this side, father on this side, wife on this side, husband. It don't matter.
And I used to, and there was a while ago, and I would hear people say 50-50, and I'm like, what about 100-100? Like, what about that? You know,
Yeah.
what about everybody, bring everything, let's bring
Yeah.
everything to the table, So
Bring it
yeah,
all.
50-50, because where the other 50 going? That's 100 missing. 50 off of that person, 50, that's a
Yeah.
whole 100 missing,
Right.
So yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
let's let's bring it all in, Yeah,
Yeah,
let's give
that's
our
true.
all.
That's
Right,
so
because you have to
true.
think, right, where the other 50 going?
But there's a
Yeah.
whole hundred missing. It is. You're right.
Right. When you do
That's
the math,
true. Mm-hmm.
but we don't think about it like that. But yeah, the 4 steps, I apply it all the time, and even at the quick moments, you could like once I was at the red light, and this car was about to pull out, in front of me, the car, and I was like, of course it scares you, but then when you have a whole process, you think about your origin. Oh, this car pulled out in front of me. Do you think about the emotion? That scared me,
Fear.
like,
Yeah.
oh, would it created fear and sometimes anger because what if this had happened? You go through this whole process, but then the
Right.
accountability, you think about it. Oh, but what if that person was going through something? What if they has just got bad news? What if they on their way to an emergency?
Mm-hmm.
This is how you begin to respond. You don't chase them down and catch them at the red light and shoot a
Yeah.
bird or get out your car and argue. Because, like I say, we respond according to our traumas and our pain and things that we keep inside
Mm-hmm.
that we don't get rid of. And then guess what? You're able to let it go. Once you calm down, because the adrenaline is, still going, but then you keep telling yourself, that wasn't on purpose. You keep telling yourself, but that's because you have created that safe space in you. And if you've not watched, previous videos, we talk heavily about creating a safe space within and not within, other people.
Other
Yeah,
people. Yep.
they bring that, you share that too, but you have to create your safe space within because that's your safety net. That's the place where you can go when nobody else is around.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask, what is your safe space? And somebody say my house. But when you leave out of the house, can you take that house with you? No.
Right. That's
So your
true.
safe space has to be in. It has to calm that nervous system down.
Mm-hmm.
All of that matters. But and then of course the last thing will be to let it go. When you let it go, you be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, okay. But that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna respond the next time with the same situation.
Emotion.
But I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring those steps in really quick to get me coming down, because I've seen where it happened. You get all upset, you still fussing, and you go further down. Somebody does the same thing. It's like, you better go ahead and calm down, because you've
Yeah.
constantly
A
attracted
domino
all of this.
effect.
There you
Mm-hmm.
go. So it's good to use those steps and get used to using them at any given moment. Yeah. Once you know the process, you can do it. You be like, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, yeah. This person didn't mean to do that, or yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
you just think
And
different.
that's
You just think
funny
different.
that, yeah, that's true. And it's funny that you use the traffic thing as an example, because everybody have a little piece of road rage, but it's gotten to the
Yeah.
point for me where it's like if people be honking, or it's like I don't even budge. It's weird. But I'm
Right.
like, I don't even budge. Like I don't have no emotion towards it, and it's just like, okay.
It's
It's
no
so funny,
attachment.
but it's like no attachment to that emotion. I'm still like peacefully driving. Like even if they come by and shoot a bird, like I'll be laughing because it's like, okay, what does that
Yeah.
do? But
Right. Your
it just
safety is
don't
more
bother
important.
me. Yeah, it doesn't
Right.
bother me when certain stuff just don't bother me, and
Right.
that'll help you that'll really let you know if you let go of those
A lot of
emotions or
things.
anything that trigger you. Yeah.
Right. Because if it's still triggering you, then, it's okay to go back and revisit those situations that we've held deep down inside, that we've suppressed because, we had nobody to tell. It's okay to get that out now. Even though
Mm-hmm.
it was in the past, it's okay, to talk to somebody about it so you could feel safe, and and not continues to track those situations or those people. But people don't realize too that it may be a different situation, but it could bring the same pain. It may be a different friendship, but it could bring the same pain. And if you don't do the work to prevent
Mm.
that, then it's going to keep coming. That's why some people think, well, oh, this keep happening to me. If it ain't something, those people that say it's always something, my
Mm-mm.
heart goes out to you because you're actually creating that environment for it to happen again, just by verbally speaking it, just by
Yep.
verbally saying it. Yeah.
And
I
that's a
think we got
real
like
thing
1 minute
being
left.
powerful. Oh yeah.
Right.
What you're saying is powerful. Just be careful about, what you say. Just speaking positivity, you know,
Right.
into your life and any situations, and you'll get through.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You'll see the difference. You'll see the change. You'll see, you take the baby steps. And we are just so dedicated to, helping people get stuck from out that middle, because that middle
Mm-hmm.
is where everything is. It's almost like the net. It's almost like the trap. Like I said, you have the pain over here and you have the healers over here. This is what it looked like to be healed. This is what it looks like when you have trauma. But nobody is saying, how do I make that bridge to get over to the heal process? And a lot of things, they make you hold on to it and deal with it, but they don't tell you how to get rid of it. They
Yeah.
make you they say, like, okay, it's okay to carry it, but this is how you're supposed to act and you're supposed to respond. It's like, but how when I'm carrying all of this? But no, we're trying to get rid of all of that so you can attract your abundance. You can attract everything, good, because sometimes you'll have a good situation, but it'll come with a bad, you get the job that you want. Oh, I got the job. I've been really wanting this job. And then you get there and then you got a supervisor that's a terror. So you'll get the good, but you want good on good. You don't want good and bad. You don't want the 50-50, because
Right.
it happens when we don't heal, when we don't get rid of these emotions. It happens. Yeah.
Right. And then one last thing too is, a lot of people feel like they are healed because they feel like, they over the situation, or they forgot about it, or it don't personally bother them. And it's mostly because it's bottled down in there. Like, yeah, you don't probably think
Right.
about it every day, but it's still there because you haven't done the work. So, that's another
Right.
thing. People get, think, oh, I'm healed from that, or I'm not thinking
I,
about that, or it don't bother me no more. But as soon as, it show up in a different way, like you said, and you feel that
right.
same pain, it just take you backwards. So
And you
just
start
being
thinking about that
aware.
same situation. You start thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
same relationship. You start thinking about
Right.
that same friendship, you know? And a
Yeah.
loss is a loss. And it doesn't mean that the person is gone forever. Sometimes they may have, have moved on. They're still
Right.
here, but you can
Right.
still grieve the situation. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we try to be
Yeah.
that bridge in between. Yeah. Anybody have any
Think this.
questions or anything? No questions or anything? Okay.
Oops.
And we also
All right.
have the first 3 videos that we've discussed. We did titles. We've done of course we did a whole live on the 4 steps to healing. And what was the other one that we did? It was 1, 2, 3. Let me see, how to heal, titles. We did today expectations, and I can't remember
What
what it
was the
was.
other one?
I know, but it's 4 videos up on YouTube that that'll help, and they kind of go in order according to what we were talking about. I know we said
Yes.
titles.
Yeah.
We said titles. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But we thank you for coming in and joining. Like I said, this is a safe space. We just want to talk. If you want to come up, if you're dealing with a situation, maybe we can run through the 4 steps with you to help you get to a better place, to get rid of some emotions that you may have buried. Because, like you say, a lot of people think, oh, I'm healed. I don't talk to that person no more. But then you got to understand, you don't want to attract that same situation. So you have to do the work. You have to ask yourself, why did I attract this? What am I holding in? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
All
you.
right. So that's
Ladies
it
are
for tonight.
phenomenal. Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. But yeah. And
We'll be.
hopefully we'll be back next
I was about to
Friday,
say.
probably around
Yeah.
this same time. What do you want to talk about? You have an idea what you want to talk about?
Mystery.
Mr. Timelines?
Ooh. We
Are
need
you what
Mick
you
Meister
see?
to come up for that one.
Right.
Yeah.
To talk
We
about
might
the
have a finale.
timelines.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, with the
Yeah.
timeline. So hopefully we
That
can
could be
pull
a good
him
one.
in. Yep, I
Yeah.
think that'll be fun. Yep, yep. Look at the
All
eyeballs.
right.
Yep, we waiting on you. Okay,
All
but thank
right.
y'all so much for joining the live, and share it. Tell a friend, bring a friend next time. But yeah, we thank y'all so much.
All righty.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Night.